Have you ever felt that hidden somewhere in the ancient ruins of time lies a truth so dark, so forbidden, that even the stars dare not whisper it? Tonight, we step into the shadowed corridors of forgotten temples, into the scorched sands where blood mingled with incense and divine names were etched in fire. This is not a tale for the faint of heart. This is a gnosis of gods not made to be loved, but feared, understood, and perhaps obeyed. We speak of the Canaanite pantheon, not the gods who grant comfort, but the ones who demand transformation through fire, sacrifice, and secrecy. In the West, these ancient names, Moloch, Baal, Anat, are whispered only as warnings. The stories that survive cast them as monsters, devourers of children, patrons of war and ecstasy. But what if these were not merely villains of a bygone mythology? What if they were archetypes, distorted and suppressed, holding keys to forbidden knowledge, deep transformation, and an ancient spiritual power modern seekers have forgotten how to wield? The Canaanites believed that the divine was not simply benevolent or wrathful. It was a force of paradox. Their gods reflected the terrible beauty of nature itself, capable of nurturing life or taking it without mercy. And in that reflection, they offered a path, not toward comfort, but toward confrontation, with death, with instinct, with shadow, and with truth. In this video, we will pierce the veil that has long obscured these cruelest of gods. We'll journey through the sands of Ugarit, decode the sacred language of sacrifice, and explore the deep esoteric currents that flowed through their rituals. We'll ask difficult questions. Why did these gods demand so much? What power did their worshippers receive in return? And what can the modern seeker learn from such demanding divinities? But beware, this is not just history. This is initiation. And once you see what lies behind their masks, you may never look at your own soul the same way again. Long before the rise of monotheism, before the sacred scrolls of Jerusalem or the tablets of Babylon, there was Canaan, a crossroad of empires, of blood and divinity, where the veil between gods and mortals was dangerously thin. Canaan was not a unified kingdom, but a cultural and religious patchwork that stretched from the Mediterranean coast to what we now know as Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and Jordan. It was a land steeped in duality, between fertility and famine, trade and war, ecstasy and sacrifice. In this fragile balance, the Canaanites crafted a pantheon that mirrored the contradictions of their world. Among their gods were names that echo in dread through the corridors of time. Baal, the storm lord, not only brought rain and crops, but crushed enemies with thunder. Anat, his sister and consort, was a goddess of fertility, but also a blood-soaked warrior who waded through corpses, laughing as she slaughtered. And Moloch, perhaps the most vilified, demanded the ultimate price, the life of firstborn. Yet to the Canaanites, these were not evil entities. They were necessary, sacred, and above all real. The sacred texts of Ugarit, unearthed in Ras Shamra in the 1920s, offered a window into this esoteric worldview. Written in a cuneiform-like alphabet and dating back over 3,000 years, these clay tablets detail rituals, prayers, hymns, and mythologies that reveal not only religious devotion but a gnosis, an intimate, experiential knowledge of the divine that could only be earned through ordeal and initiation. Here, the gods were not worshipped for comfort or blessings alone. They were feared, invoked, and bargained with through rituals that pushed the boundaries of flesh and spirit. Sacrifice was not cruelty. It was exchange. The life offered was a gateway to cosmic reciprocity, a symbol of surrender to forces greater than the self. And within that surrender, initiates believed, lay the key to transcendence. Philosophically, this pantheon reflects what the mystics of all ages eventually discover. That truth is not gentle. In every authentic spiritual path, there comes a threshold where the seeker must confront the shadow, the unrelenting aspects of the self and cosmos that do not comfort, but awaken. The Canaanites simply gave these forces names, shrines, and fire. Modern esotericism often seeks only the light, angelic guides, healing energies, sacred love. But the ancients knew that the path of gnosis winds through both radiance and ruin. The gods of Canaan offer no easy lessons. They are mirrors of destruction and creation, terror and ecstasy, demanding not your belief, but your transformation. Their legacy, misunderstood, demonized, and buried under layers of conquest and condemnation, still pulses beneath the surface of our collective memory. They were not forgotten. They were veiled. And now, we begin to lift that veil to understand the deep gnosis encoded within the cruelest Canaanite gods. We must first abandon modern categories of good and evil. These gods did not conform to moral systems. They created them, shattered them, and demanded that humans evolve through that chaos. Let us begin with Moloch, perhaps the most feared and misunderstood. Often depicted as a bull-headed deity with outstretched arms, Moloch became infamous in later texts for demanding child sacrifice. But what was Moloch really? In the esoteric lens, Moloch is not merely a destroyer. He is the initiator of irreversible transformation. In psychological terms, he represents the terrifying passage of ego death. To offer a child in the symbolic sense is to relinquish that which is most innocent, most dear, most personal. It is a sacrifice of identity, of comfort, of the known self to the fire of the unknown, the fire that does not warm, but refines. Moloch is the divine forge. His altar is the place where illusions are incinerated, and from the ash, something more ancient and potent emerges, sovereignty through surrender. This is not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It is alchemy. The sacrifice was not always literal. It could be interpreted as fasting, physical pain, or deep meditative ordeal, a process of burning away the excess to access the sacred core. The seeker did not walk away unharmed, but awakened. Now, consider Anat, the warrior goddess. She is the sword of divine feminine rage, raw, ecstatic, and unrepentant. Her mythology speaks of vengeance, of slaughter, of joy found in war. To the uninitiated, she appears monstrous. But in esoteric symbolism, Anat is a storm of suppressed emotion, the eruption of repressed power, the fury that shatters bondage. She is the initiator of catharsis. In the Canaanite mysteries, Anat was both a lover and destroyer. She reminds us that love and death dance in the same circle. That creation requires destruction. The seeker who invokes her does not merely pray. They bleed truth from their own wounds. She is the aspect of the divine that refuses to be silenced or contained. Next comes Baal, perhaps the most central of the Canaanite gods. His name means Lord, and his essence was bound to thunder, fertility, and rulership. He is the archetype of the cyclical divine king. Born in spring, slain in summer, resurrected in fall. Baal's mythology is less about dominance and more about death and rebirth. But here's the hidden teaching. Baal is not resurrected despite his death, but through it. The ritual mourning of Baal's death by his followers was not mere grief. It was participation in the cosmic cycle. To mourn the god was to mirror one's own descent and resurrection. To live through Baal was to accept one's own impermanence and power beyond the grave. In practical gnosis, Baal teaches that control must be relinquished to allow true abundance. He is not just a rain god. He is a store within the soul, the seasonal death of ego, the fertilizing force that arises only after surrender. Each of these gods encodes an aspect of inner transformation. Moloch asks for the sacrifice of illusion. Anat demands that we unleash our rage into purpose. Baal teaches the humility of death and the patience of rebirth. Together, they do not offer comfort. They offer awakening. If you dare to walk the path of their fire, as we continue deeper into the gnosis of the Canaanite pantheon, we begin to see that cruelty, in this context, was not gratuitous. It was initiatory. These gods function as sacred thresholds, each guarding a truth that could only be unlocked through confrontation with extremes. Terror, lost desire, and divine madness. Let us turn to Mot, the god of death. Not death as an ending, but death as a cosmic hunger. In the Ugaritic text, Mot devours Baal, swallowing the storm god into his dark belly. This is not just myth. It is an esoteric map of initiation. Mot is the abyss we all fear, the silence after the last breath, the void where ego dissolves. But Mot is also a teacher. He teaches that nothing you cling to, no identity, no possession, no belief, can survive in the presence of truth. To face Mot is to face the void within yourself. And if you do not flinch, if you do not flee, then Mot, paradoxically, becomes a gatekeeper to rebirth. In ancient ritual, this meant fasting, isolation, or ritual burial, practices meant to simulate death. In spiritual terms, it is the dark night of the soul. You are meant to be devoured, to become food for something greater. And in doing so, you become formless, ready to take a new shape. Now, consider El, the father of the gods, a being of terrifying stillness and paradox. While modern lenses often paint him as a benign sky deity, El in the Ugaritic text is a figure of primal chaos, sexual power, and violent creation. He creates, destroys, and watches detached. He blesses and curses in the same breath. He is not morality. He is origin. In the esoteric sense, El is the ineffable source before duality. He is the void that births polarity. To approach El is to abandon all definitions, even of God. His gnosis is one of unknowing. He does not teach, he erases, and only in the space left behind does true knowing emerge. Lastly, we must not ignore Reshef, the god of plague and flame. He is fire that burns without mercy, but also fire that purifies. Reshef is the fever that breaks illusions, the divine wrath that scours the soul until only the essential remains. In later traditions, he was demonized, like many Canaanite deities, but in their own rights, Reshef was a bringer of healing through destruction. In his temple, smoke and ash were sacraments. To work with Reshef meant confronting your inner poison, not with avoidance, but with exposure. He brings your wounds to the surface and lights them on fire, but only so that you may walk through the flames and emerge whole. Let us pause here. These gods, Moel, Reshef, form the inner triad of spiritual annihilation and rebirth, where Moloch, Anat, and Baal initiated the seeker through sacrifice, emotion, and renewal. Moel and Reshef take that seeker to the threshold beyond thresholds. Together, the six form an esoteric current of transformation, and it is only when one passes through each of them, offering, emptying, burning, dissolving, that the seventh presence emerges. That seventh is not named in the text. It is the silence after the scream, the void after the fire. It is gnosis itself, earned to the trial of gods. This is not mythology. This is a map. And every true seeker at some point walks it, whether they know these names or not. You may be wondering, how can these fierce and ancient archetypes guide a modern seeker on the spiritual path? What relevance do gods of sacrifice, plague, and fire hold in the world of meditation apps and self-help gurus? The answer is simple. Truth never ages. And the deep gnosis of the Canaanite pantheon offers not just myth, but method, if one is willing to embrace discomfort and step into spiritual adulthood. Here is how you can begin working with these forces, not as deities to be worshipped blindly, but as symbolic currents within the psyche and soul. 1. The ritual of Moloch, letting go of the beloved illusion. Once a month, set aside an hour for radical sacrifice. Not a child or an animal, but a belief, identity, or comfort you know is holding you back. Write it down. Name it. Speak it aloud. Then burn the paper. This is not symbolic. It is psycho-spiritual pruning. Moloch teaches that growth begins where clinging ends. If you want transformation, something precious must go. 2. The invocation of Anat, the channeling of righteous rage. Rage is sacred when directed with intention. Stand before a mirror, breathe deeply, and allow your body to express your anger through movement, sound, or tears. Let it not rise within you, not to harm, but to liberate. Ask yourself, what am I furious about? What boundaries have I betrayed within myself? Use this practice to reclaim power without shame. 3. The cycle of Baal, surrender to the death of seasons. Mark your inner winters and springs. When you feel a part of you dying, don't resist. Create a ritual space. Write a eulogy for the aspect of yourself that is ending. Then bury the words. Plant a seed on top. This is Baal's rhythm. Death feeds life. Aligning with it restores trust in impermanence. 4. The descent to moat the abyss meditation. Find a quiet place. Sit in stillness. Close your eyes. Imagine falling into blackness. No light, no form. Just pure silence. Let go of your thoughts, your name, even your breath. Let moat hold you. Stay as long as you can. When you return, write what you felt. This is shadow work at its most essential, encountering the void within. 5. The silence of emptiness as source. Once a week, practice 1 hour of non-doing. No phone, no books, no music. Just sit and be. L is not found in complexity, but in presence. This is not meditation. It is communion with the formless. When the mind resists, simply observe. When insights arise, smile, but let them pass. L teaches through emptiness. 6. The fire of Reshef, purification through pain. Choose a habit, addiction, or poison, mental or physical, that you know is inflaming your life. Reshef does not remove pain. He amplifies it until you cannot look away. Write down the cost of this poison. Sit by a candle. Read the cost aloud. Then commit to one concrete act of purification. A fast, a cleanse, a confrontation, a change. Let the fire burn what is rotting. Practical advice for the seeker. Do not rush. The path of the Canaanite gods is not a weekend workshop. It is a slow disrobing of the soul. Do not moralize. These energies are beyond good and evil. They are tools, sharp ones. Handle with reverence. Do not forget the body. These practices are not just mental. Your nervous system is the temple. Respect its limits. Journal everything. You are mapping your descent. Someday, others may follow your steps. Leave markers. Ultimately, these gods do not want belief. They want engagement. They are doorways into your own forgotten depths, your sacred violence, your cyclical death, your silent origin. Work with them, and you will change. Avoid them, and life may still bring them to you, in far more brutal ways. The cruelest gods are not cruel because they hate us. They are cruel because they do not lie. They do not promise safety. They do not coddle the ego. They do not wait for you to be ready. They demand, and in their demand, they awaken what no gentle god ever could, the fire that purifies, the scream that births silence, the terror that sharpens truth. The Canaanite pantheon, buried beneath layers of demonization and dust, was never merely a relic of savage religion. It was a roadmap, a spiritual anatomy, a confrontation with forces we've domesticated in modern spirituality, but that still live within us, coiled like serpents waiting for a name. Tonight, you have heard those names again: Moloch, Anat, Baal, Mot, El, Reshef, and with them, you've glimpsed what they offer: not peace, but power; not salvation, but transfiguration; not comfort, but gnosis. Their temples are long gone, their rites scattered, their myths fragmented, but their essence endures. In you, in your suffering, your longing, your rebirths. Every time you shed an old self, every time you walk into pain with open eyes, every time you choose truth over illusion, you are walking their path. This video has been an unveiling, a remembrance, a call to step beyond the light and into the sacred dark where real transformation begins. So, dear seeker, I ask you now, which God stands at your threshold? Which one speaks in your dreams? And are you ready to answer? Let their gnosis burn through you. Let it guide you into the fire and beyond. If this journey stirred something ancient within you, do not silence it. Reflect, explore, share your insights in the comments. And if you're ready to dive deeper into forgotten truths, hidden teachings, and the sacred path of the soul, subscribe to this channel. This is only the beginning. The gods are not gone. They're just waiting.